Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Small Business Success Talk. I'm your host, Christy Smallwood. And guess what? This is another one of those episodes where we're going to pick some women from history that have been in business because it is Women's History Month. And this episode, I have chosen this whole line and area. I thought it would only be beauty products, but it's not. So hang on to your hats and your patent leather shoes because we're going way back. The first, let's see, how do they phrase it here? She's in the Guinness Book of World Records, recorded as the first female self-made millionaire in America. That would be Madam C.J. Walker, originally born Sarah Breedlove. She was born in 1867. She passed in 1919. She was an American entrepreneur, philanthropist, and political and social activist. She also happened to be a woman of color, which is also so amazing. Like this whole thing, if you've not caught the Netflix show about her, it's very well done. Whether it's like exactly her life, of course, it's an entertainment show. It's not a documentary. There's some liberties taken, I'm sure, but from what I'm reading here, Walker made her fortune by developing and marketing a line of cosmetics and hair products for Black women through the business that she founded, which was Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company. She became known also for her philanthropy and activism. She made financial donations to numerous organizations such as the NAACP and became a patron of the arts. She has had a lavish estate in Irvington, New York, served as a social gathering place for the African American community. And at the time of her death, she was considered the wealthiest African American businesswoman and wealthiest self-made Black woman in America. So she, just watching that show, getting a sense of not just about like where she came from, but the challenges that she had to even build the business, to come up with the products, to how to develop it, how to like build this business out, is all in and of itself amazing. And when I first chose the content for this particular episode, I was thinking Mary Kay, Mary Kay Cosmetics. Now, Mary Kay in her own right is an amazing woman. She was the founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics because that's the brand we all recognize. But Madam C.J. Walker was the predecessor to that. So she self-made millionaire in the beauty industry. And to top it all off, as a woman of color, and definitely in that time of our country when you just don't really hear about those things. And it was, I can't even imagine the level of challenge that presented itself. And at the same time, who cares? Like, she's going to do it anyway. Whether you're on board or not, she did it. And she clearly took charge and made it all happen. Now, so then we move on to Mary Kay Ash, founder of Mary Kay Cosmetics. And she, at her death, she had a fortune of $98 million, and her company had more than $1.2 billion in sales, with a sales force of more than 800,000 in at least 36 countries. A sales force of 800,000 people in at least 36 countries. International company. So then I got to thinking about direct sales, because Mary Kay Cosmetics, they use a business model of a direct sales. It's not, I mean, there's some people who call it like network marketing, or there's been all kinds of things over the years. It is not a Ponzi scheme. This is a legit business that has a commission structure built in. And I always tell people, like, they're coming to me with these new ideas and when I air quote, the direct sales companies, there are times that they are schemes. They just doesn't work out. I usually tell people, because I've also participated in some, one of which my mom used to be a Mary Kay person, but I've also been a Premier Designs jewelry lady, and I loved it. And so what I tell people is, when you have a new business come around that's like that, look at the commission structure. Can you make money if you're only doing the sales part? If you also have to recruit to actually make the money, then it's not as legit as you want it to be. Not that you can't make money, but it's going to be like this one hit wonder kind of stuff. But if the margin is there that as a commission only salesperson, you can make a living off of that, or, part time living, then absolutely it gives you a lot of benefits to be able to have that kind of side business or full time business, depending on how you want to approach it. And this is the model in which Mary Kay built her empire of Mary Kay Cosmetics. And so as I continued to dig a little bit more, Mary Kay had went to work for Stanley Home Products in 1939. So again, after Madam C.J. Walker in the beauty industry, you've got Mary Kay, who went to work for Stanley Home Products. Frustrated when passed over for a promotion in favor of a man that she had trained, Ash retired in 1963 and intended to write a book to assist women in business. And the book turned into a business plan for her ideal company. And in the summer of 1963, Mary Kay Ash and her new husband, George Hallenbeck, planned to start Mary Kay Cosmetics. However, George died of a heart attack that same year, and Mary Kay was 45 years old. So she'd already lived a whole lifetime in 45 years. She hasn't started her business yet. So any of you out there who are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you ain't done yet. You haven't even begun. And I need to say this, like I see myself on camera right now and preach it to myself. I ain't done. I haven't even started. I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg on all of the potential and all the things that I can do. So I'm saying that to you as well. So 1 month, though, after her husband's death, with a $5,000 investment from her oldest son, Ben, Ash started Mary Kay Cosmetics. And it never ceases to amaze me how somebody could take such a little spark and turn it into a wildfire. There was the lady I worked for in the ad business here locally. The name of the ad agency was Creative Alliance. The owner was Debbie Scapecchio. She went into partnership with Joe Adams, who did the design work, and she ran the business and got the business in. And they literally started with $500 and a credit card and got their first client. And their first client happened to be KFC. And it just set the trajectory. She built her network, and this town knew her, and I learned a great deal from Debbie Scapecchio. And some of that is what not to do, right? There's still going to be, we're all human and they're not perfect. So Mary Kay just was a huge role model. She was a great salesperson. She's a great entrepreneur in the beauty industry, and she represented really well in the beauty industry. So there's one note here. And they say Ash copied the same quote unquote house party model. So we call that direct sales now. But back in the day when direct sales started, it was you had home parties. So ladies would invite their friends over because women are the purchasers of the house. Ladies would invite their friends over, and they would have the representative of the company come and show off all of the wares. So instead of having just a door-to-door salesman, which was very that was a normal role back in the day, your door-to-door vacuum sales or whatever. You still may have some people show up at your door trying to sell things now, but back then it was more prevalent. So what they did is they took just a cold calling concept and said, hey, why don't you throw a party? I'll show up, and like 5 to 10 of your best friends can be in the room all at the same time. So the house party model got started. Fast forward, we now call that direct sales. Mary Kay was a very visible, very active, almost ridiculously feminine looking role model, which meant she was very pretty. A God-fearing, hardworking, immaculately groomed mother of 3 who was doing everything within her power to see other women get ahead, and who loved mentoring so much that she referred to her saleswomen as her daughters. Also, unlike Avon, Mary Kay made her saleswomen more profit per unit. And Mary Kay lipstick cost roughly double the price of an Avon lipstick and hence made twice the profit. While the home party format meant that several customers could be approached at once, Mary Kay made her company purposely inclusive, enabling her rapid expansion into Australia, South America, Europe, and Asia. Like her, if you've not heard of Mary Kay, then I'm not sure where you've been. One of the most popular things that is associated with Mary Kay Cosmetics are pink Cadillacs. Now that's the traditional vehicle. I have since learned in the past handful of years, in the past decade, you don't have to choose just a Cadillac. You can get a Mercedes. Get whatever you want. They're going to paint it pink. It's going to be pink. Pink is the color. Pink is Mary Kay's color. So also learning about Mary Kay, I was like, oh my gosh, there's other direct sales companies out there. I wonder, where were they founded? Now, back to my reference of Premier Designs Jewelry, that company was founded by Andy and Joan Horner, and they did it in a response to wanting to be able to provide another way for young mothers to provide for their homes while having the flexibility to still stay with their children. And that was their whole purpose for starting a jewelry company. It wasn't just to make women feel pretty, it was to empower them to be able to take care of their families. And so, in doing some more looking, I remembered this book I had on my shelf, and I really thought it was about Mary Kay Ash, but it wasn't. It's Mary Crowley. Now, this book is called Think Mink. And what's really interesting is Mary Crowley began to think mink more than when it says 40 years ago. This book is dated, very dated. So this came out try to get there, bear with me, came out in, please tell me I don't need my glasses. 1973 was the last version that I have here. But let's see. Oh, nope, that was the Bible. Hang on. Excerpt something. So this had to been in 1976. Here we go. Found it. Ooh, sorry about that. 1976 is when this book was written. Y'all, I was born in 74. So that should tell you this book. And it was written by Mary Kay. Mary C. Crowley, not Mary Kay, but Mary Crowley and Mary Kay Ash were besties. Y'all. So I didn't know. There's so many things that I didn't know. I didn't know. Anyway, so Mary Crowley, she writes about her life, and I'm not going to tell you who she is just yet. Bear with me, because I'm going to do some reading from her autobiography that she obviously wrote. There is a chapter, Falling in Love with Direct Selling. Here we go. It was one of those rare winter nights in Dallas when there's snow. It doesn't usually snow in Dallas, obviously. The streets were covered with ice. Since the city usually has no need for snowplows and does not own any, I knew the streets would stay as slick as a skating rink until the sun melted the snowy crust the next day. But this was the night that one of my Sunday school young marrieds had invited me to attend a Stanley party. Remember who worked at Stanley? That was Mary Kay Ash. I looked at the icy streets and almost backed out, but I knew Leah, I'm going to call her Leah. I don't know if it's Lee or Leah, was really struggling on a limited budget. At the Stanley party, she would receive a gift with the value of the prize dependent on the amount of sales made at the party. I could always use waxes and polishes, and my purchases would help her out. Since Dave, her husband, was out of town on a training stint for the National Guard, I decided to go. I slid and slithered down the driveway to her walk-up garage apartment. As I struggled up the icy steps on which Leah had sprinkled sand, she opened the door and welcomed me. I didn't think anyone would come at all, she laughed. When I walked into the tiny apartment, I realized just how much a Stanley Prize would mean to Leah. The living room, in air quotes, was also the kitchen and the dining room. An apartment-sized stove, a miniature refrigerator, a table for two, some borrowed folding chairs, and a sofa filled every inch of the room. Only 3 people made it to the party besides Mary Kay Eckman, the Stanley demonstrator. She was an attractive blonde woman with a cheerful, positive manner that I instantly liked. Mary Kay showed us her waxes and polishes and talked about how important it was to keep a clean, shining home for your family. A house is not a home unless you make it that way, she said. She seemed to be echoing my sentiments exactly. Soon the 6 of us were enjoying Leah's cake, coffee, and chatting away as old friends would do. What kind of work do you do, Mary? Mary Kay asked me. I told her I was an accountant at Person Company, but that I also spent time trying to help customers with their furniture selections. I really enjoy sales, I said. Then why don't you join the Stanley family and be a demonstrator? Mary Kay asked. You could have lots of time to be with your children when they come home from school. Oh, but I would make $100 a week but I make $100 a week as an accountant. Now, again, mind you, this is a long time ago. $100 a week as an accountant back then for a woman, it was kind of a big deal. All right, back to the story. I said, I was proud of that. In 1949, that was an impressive salary for an accountant. But Mary Kay only smiled. So do I. On a bad week, she said. I stared at her. Did she really make as much money selling waxes and polishes at parties as I did working 8 to 5 every day? 8 to 5 every day. And even if she did, how long would that kind of career last? If hard times came, people probably wouldn't buy as many waxes. And then where would I be? But I need the security of a permanent job, I said. You ought to try it, Mary Kay said. I think you'd be good at it. I went home from the party with a vague sense of unrest. The idea of selling to other women in their homes really appealed to me. As for sharing God's love, what better way than to be invited into homes where people don't know him? Why, I could even help women with their home decorating too. But if it didn't work out, where would I ever find another accountant's job that paid $100 a week? Well, you could try it part-time, Mary Kay said when she delivered my order. One night after work, I held my first Stanley party at a friend's house. It was every bit as much fun as working at Mr. Jelinek store. In fact, I liked this kind of selling better because I got to know the customers in a very personal way. Before long, I was booking 2 or 3 parties a week and making more than the $100 I made as an accountant. I quit my secured job with a future and began working full time with Stanley Home Products. That was the beginning of a lasting friendship with a super saleswoman, the person who would go on years later to create the Mary Kay Cosmetics Company. The 2 of us just clicked. We agreed about God's being a God of abundance who wanted us to have lots of good things, both material and spiritual. God never made a stingy sunset, I'd point out. Look what beautiful colors he put into them. And the flowers, Mary Kay would add. He certainly used a lavish hand on them. I think God gave us an aesthetic nature just so that we could enjoy beautiful things. And he provides a way for us to have them if we just let him. I said, if only everyone could really believe it. We could go on for hours that way. I became a top salesperson, and before long, Mary Kay's unit made the 3rd highest sales in the nation. I was making more money than I'd ever made before. I found out, however, that I really wasn't always at home when the kids arrived home from school. Being a full-time salesperson means putting in a full-time work week. But the hours were flexible. I could reserve important dates if Dawn or Ruthie had an activity I wanted to attend, and then make up the time on the weekends. With my new job, the children had additional responsibilities. When I sent in an order for the week's sales, the delivery would be made in bulk, 12 bottles of furniture polish, 10 cans of wax, 5 quarts of wax, easy cleaner. Dawn and Ruthie would separate the bottles and cans into each customer's individual order and deliver it. They had a regular little warehouse on my screened porch. One of my neighbors used to stand at her kitchen window and watch the kids filling sacks. She kept seeing me bustle out dressed in my business clothes with a case of samples under each arm and a smile on my face. One afternoon, she stopped me in the yard to talk. My husband thinks a woman's place is in the home, she said, patting her curlers in her hair She was wearing an old shirt that belonged to her husband and wrinkled pants. He does, I said. I was wearing a new dress with a polka dot scarf and shiny patent leather shoes with heels several inches high. I guess I'm just lucky. My husband is proud to have a wife with talent and ability that she can share with others. It's really true. I'm a liberated woman because I have a liberated husband who appreciates me. But this answer did not satisfy her. Y'all, I'm going to pause for a hot second. I'm telling you, when you have the confidence to not only wear heels like that, but to point out that she's wearing heels that are several inches high, and this other lady is just in her curlers and old shirt and wrinkled pants. I I am so sorry I did not know this woman personally. I feel like she can fit right in, with the exception of we'd have to soften up the language because she's very Christian, like super Christian. Anyway, back to the story. It's really true. I'm a liberated woman because I have a liberated husband who appreciates me, which is fantastic. But this answer did not satisfy her. Well, you wouldn't be half so successful if you didn't use your kids to do your work, she sniffed. Oh, but I think it's good for the kids to work, I said. They like it too because it gives them a chance to earn some money. And they're really learning how free enterprise works. This woman's attitude did not bother me at all. I was already in love with direct selling. I thank God that my children did learn to work hard. They have always been workers in everything they do, and they've been givers too. I don't know whether they learned this or whether God just gave them generous hearts. I do know that direct selling encourages giving. It just seems that the more you give of yourself, your time, and your talents, the more you are blessed in return. Now, I was an independent contractor, an entrepreneur just as much as a store owner or corporation executive is. I really began to study my Bible, seeking help in how to run that business. The book of Proverbs, sound familiar? Book of Proverbs especially became my BS in business administration. Proverbs is part of the wisdom literature of the Old Testament. And true wisdom is looking at life from God's point of view and seeing ourselves and others as Jesus Christ sees us. This was just what I needed. Proverbs 3, especially, is a wonderful guide for business leadership. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lead not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths, which is verses 5 and 6. I think trust is the important thing. I had to learn this. A lot of times we don't completely trust the Lord. We want to hold back a little piece of ourselves, our anxiety, our selfishness, or for our own will. But the Bible says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. That means trusting him even when we don't understand. How many people miss out on the joy of loving and trusting God because they're trying to figure out how to succeed, how to direct their lives on their own? They just can't let go and let God. It has taken me a lifetime to understand that I didn't have to understand. After just a few months, okay, I'm going to stop for a second again. Sorry. Everything she just said is so stinging true. It's frustrating how true that is for people who have a hard time letting go and letting, like, let it out and let it go is what I usually say. Because how do you just let it go? But I am learning if I let it out, get it out of my system and let it go. I still need to process through the stuff, but I have to let it go because I don't understand everything going on and I don't know how to get through it without the help of somebody who knows way better than me. And I believe that to be the creator of the universe, the one that created me and figured out, like, yeah, she's a hot mess. I got this. Back to the story. After just a few months, I became manager of my own Stanley unit. Later, Mary Kay married my brother and moved away from Dallas. And I had some of her people in my unit too. Well, this marriage was dissolved 9 years later, but Mary Kay and I continued to be good friends. Love the closeness of girl relationships sometimes. When you find your person, they stay your person. Then it was, so back to the story. Then it was up to me to inspire, to settle differences, to encourage, to sympathize in times of trouble. I found a great joy in working with women this way, especially because it meant giving of myself. In 1954, I got the chance to reach even more women. A new direct sales company was being formed by an importer who wanted to sell gifts and decorative accessories from many countries. He knew how to import the merchandise, but he didn't know anything about training women to sell on the party plan. He came to see me and asked me to become his sales manager. Even though I was doing well with Stanley, I was challenged by the idea. Those products brought me closer to the desire I'd had all along of helping give decorator advice. But it really meant starting from scratch. I not only had to recruit salespeople and set up his organization, but I also had to use my own back porch as an office for 3 months. Then, when he furnished an office, I had to supply my own desk, chair, and filing cabinet. Within 3 years, I had built up a staff of 500 women selling on the party plan. Y'all, 3 years, 500 women jumped on board of this opportunity. Mary Kay moved back to Texas, and I recruited her into the organization. At first, I was allowed to run the sales organization exactly as I wanted. We gave good commission to our salespeople. I taught the staff to think of customers and hostesses as people with needs first and customers second. We had rallies, seminars, and a lot of good fellowship. We gave away trips to Mexico as sales prizes for top producers. One year, when I took a group of winners to Mexico City, I discovered that the owner had scheduled a cocktail party as one of the activities. I did not like that one bit, and I told him so. You can't run the sales department as though it's a Baptist Sunday school, Mary, he said. He let me know he wasn't going along with my wishes anymore, for I was very firm in my belief that alcoholic beverages did not fit in with my purpose in building people. Now, remember, this is in the 50s. Things are definitely a little different now, but you know what? Let me point out, she's holding strong to her beliefs. And if she had the freedom to run it the way that she felt was the right way to do it, it clearly was working. 500 people in 3 years, and they're giving away Mexico trips as prizes. I think things are going the way I think it was working just fine for her. But he had disagreed. So she goes on to say, I tried to continue to work for him. I'd had a lot of respect for him in the beginning, but now that our salespeople were just beginning to make good incomes, he put limits on how much commission they could make. I felt he was really working contrary to the basic law of abundance that is God's. I wrote a letter outlining my differences with him and saying I would have to resign if changes were not made. I really felt badly about these differences and hoped he would see things my way. But the following Monday at 7 a.m., I heard the sound of a truck in my driveway and then the ringing of my doorbell. Dave and I arrived at the door about the same time. It was the man from the company warehouse. Here's your furniture, he said. What do you mean? I asked. After a fitful night, I could scarcely open my eyes, much less understand. Your furniture, Mrs. Crowley, from the office. It's yours, isn't it? Why, yes. Well, the boss told me you wouldn't be using it anymore, he said apologetically. He told me to bring it to you. We told him to put the desk, the chair, and the filing cabinet in the middle of the living room. We couldn't think anywhere else to put them just then. They stood there, empty and meaningless as an abandoned house. A reminder of the beginning 4.5 years ago when both my furniture and my philosophies were welcomed and wanted. Now, neither were wanted anymore. I threw myself down on the sofa and I started to cry. So the reason why I'm reading this book is to actually give you her words and her experience. We can sit and we can watch a movie about Madam C.J. Walker and it be not only filled with inspiration, but some entertainment, right? There's going to be pieces and parts of that they've definitely taken some liberties, which is in line with the story itself. It's not a problem. But when you get the actual words from somebody that is living it, and this was her experience, it hits different. Like this is an everyday kind of thing. So some more beautiful pieces are coming up, and I promise I only got just a little bit more to go because I want to see if you figure it out before I get there. So we next chapter, Birth of a Company. He can't do that to you. My husband, Dave, was just as angry with my boss as I was. In fact, my big, strong, adorable Dave had just offered to beat up my boss. A great guy. In between sobs, I assured him that I didn't want him to do it. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. I reminded him. It was the only verse I could think of at the moment. And y'all, I've used that so many times. I have used that so many times to calm myself down. This battle is not mine. This battle is not mine. Get back to the story. It was the only verse I could think of at the moment. Dave fussed and fumed, but finally he had to go to work. Try not to take it so hard, he said as he kissed me goodbye. But the moment he closed the front door, I cried all the harder. It just wasn't fair, I told myself. I'd worked day and night to build up my boss's business. Anybody else have that experience? I had tried to work out our differences with dignity, and his sending my furniture out on the truck was an insult. No kidding. Also, I had put countless hours of myself into training his people. Now, what did I have to show for it? I would have to find work with another company about which I knew nothing at all, or look for a different kind of future. Soon, all the wasted years with my stepmother, all the hurtful things people had ever done to me, were churning around in my memory. I was about to work myself into a real case of the self-pities. Not one of us have ever done that. Ever. Never done that. As I say tongue in cheek, is we all have done that. Then a vision of my grandmother standing in her long white apron flashed into my mind. Don't live in if only land, Mary, she said. I'd always told the women who worked with me, instead of being an if thinker, become a how thinker. Now it seemed God was saying, don't just sit there and feel sorry for yourself. And so I took a step that was as important to my life as Columbus's setting sail was to the discovery of America. I dried my tears, bathed, dressed in my nicest outfit. I went to see my friend Ralph Baker. Ralph was appalled to learn what had happened. He did not hesitate a minute. He picked up the phone and called a friend who had the perfect solution for me. Then they took me to lunch. Ralph and his friend wanted me to head up a new women's division for an insurance company. It's a top-notch career, just made for you, said Ralph. You'd be selling to other women and you have plenty of opportunities to help them too. I'll think about it, I said. I thanked my friends for the lunch and left them. Okay, tangent side note. Her husband being a support, again, y'all, remember this was in the 50s. She's had a shithead boss, extremely supportive husband, and she's called this friend Ralph, who is offering to create a whole new division of their company specifically for her to lead. Okay. She says, I'll think about it. I thanked my friends for the lunch and left them. Somehow, selling insurance just didn't have the same appeal that direct sales did. I was grateful to know that they thought that highly of me, but hadn't a lot of women with whom I worked often urged me to set up my own direct sales company? I knew that was what I really wanted to do. If I had my own company, I could set the standards I wanted upheld. I could be as generous as I wanted with the commission. What would happen if I started a business that was really dedicated to helping women create happier homes? Wouldn't it just have to succeed? But how could I create such a company? Nobody knew me, and I didn't have the capital or the contacts with suppliers, or so I thought. On an impulse, I went to call on H.T. Ardinger and Son, a large importer of decorative accessories from the Orient. The Orient, again, in the 50s. My ex-sales staff had sold a lot of Ardinger plaques and figurines, but I felt sure the Ardingers themselves did not know me. When I entered the office, the dignified wife of the importer himself asked if she could help me. I'm Mary Crowley, I said, and I used to be the sales manager for... She goes, oh, why, yes, she said before I could even finish. We certainly know who you are. You do? I asked. Certainly, she said. But did you say you're not the vice president and sales manager anymore? That's right. I said, I wanted to start my own company and I want to buy from you. Mrs. Ardinger broke into a big smile. Horace, come here, she called to her son, who was later to head the Ardinger Company. Did you hear the news? Mary Crowley's going to start her own company. Before I could say another word, all the Ardingers were shaking my hand and congratulating me. As self confident as I normally am, I almost could not believe their response. I had never realized that when you are in business, many, many other people are watching you closely. The Ardingers not only knew of the high standards I tried to set, but they also approved of them and wanted to help me. Soon they were referring me to other suppliers who could help. I went to see Ward Adams and Ruby Tedder and Son, some of the largest Southwestern representatives, manufacturers all over the nation. These wonderful people simply picked up the phone and called Mark Ross a West Coast decorative accessories wholesaler. Whatever this girl wants, let her have it. They said I had not established any business credit at all. Based on my past reputation, these people were willing to sell to me and to act as references. By the time Dave came home from the office, I was the buyer, manager, and entire sales staff of a brand new company. Instead of the red-eyed wife he had left in the morning, he now found me bubbling over with exciting plans. All of this apparently happened in a day. There's just one thing, I said. What do you mean? Dave asked. I'll have to work pretty hard to set up this business. I'll be away a lot of evenings. I may be tired when I do come home. If you don't want me to do this, just tell me and I won't. I have to admit, I held my breath. Honey, Dave said, if you don't go into business, the world of business will be the loser. I will always adore my husband for that answer. I'm going to get teared up. I will always adore my husband for that answer. If he had not wanted me to begin home interiors, I was really prepared to drop the whole thing. We had to be in it together if it were to work. So Mary Crowley, founder of Home Interiors, and if you guys are not familiar with Home Interiors, it definitely was a party plan direct sales company. And even my Aunt Sherry was a representative of Home Interiors back in the day. Home Interiors carried the line of Teddy Ruxpin. So if you aren't familiar with Teddy Ruxpin, go look that one up from the 80s. And it was such a big, huge company. I'm sure somewhere in your mama's grandmother's house, you're going to find some piece of home interior on the wall or on the shelf somewhere. That excerpt is direct from Mary Crowley and how all of that got started. She was not, she brought what she was to the table and excelled because she used her gifts and skills and talents. And even when she had the shithead boss, she still had supportive men around her. And her best friend, same industry, direct sales. Mary Kay Ash, being the powerhouse salesperson that she was as well, when you get two or more, where two or more are gathered, there he is in the midst. And definitely blessed women, blessed companies. And I was just so glad to kind of find that excerpt, that piece of that, and to see that it was in her words. And it does choke me up to have, when you have that much support as a partner in your life, there's nothing you can't accomplish. I've never had that personally, but I feel like if I did have that element, it would just be a key piece of my foundation that I feel like is missing. I've propped up through mentors and other supportive people, but I don't have the partner in that. And so that's why I get teared up, because I'm like, that's a big deal. Somebody that you are sharing your space with. It's a very intimate relationship. If they are not supportive of your dreams and your goals and entrepreneur lifestyle kind of thing, they don't have to really understand what you do, but be supportive that you do it. that was a big thing that I took away from the end of the excerpt, but there's so many things in there to learn from, and that these women are just so frickin' amazing. And it's become a really good month to learn more about these women in business. So thank you so much for continuing to show up to these episodes, because I've enjoyed them, and I hope that that comes across in each and every episode of Small Business Success Talk, whether I'm doing something like this as an episode, something that I'm bringing to you from my own training and my own experience, or when I interview guests. I really do appreciate you coming back every time. You hit that little subscribe button, you share it with your friends, keep telling the world, because I need y'all to be my partner, and let's make this, as everybody needs this kind of support. And that's what I'd like to be able to do through this kind of a channel. So thank you, everyone. I'll catch you again on the next episode of Small Business Success Talk.